Good morning and welcome to our business breakfast with the Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce. My name is Helen Down and I'm the Chief Executive, and this morning we have our guest with us who is Mark Scully, who you'll also probably know. Mark is President of the Hutt Valley Chamber and he's also owner of Red Hot Business Coaching and Consultancy. So as part of Red Hot's sponsorship and partnership with the Hutt Valley Chamber, Red Hot partner with us to deliver and run the quarterly business confidence survey for the Hutt Valley and Wellington region that is used every quarter to get a good sense of what is happening out there. And of course, in the last quarter, the whole world has changed. So this morning, I thought we would just share with you some of what the confidence survey is telling us, but more importantly, what has changed since that confidence survey was run a couple of weeks ago. So Mark, do you want to say anything to start with?
Yeah, thanks, Helen. Look, it was a very interesting survey this quarter, and in many respects is a very sharp snapshot of a moment in time. And so today we're really going to talk about what that snapshot looked like, more to the point, but more importantly, really what's happened since then, and kind of some examples and stories around some of the responses to this crisis that might be useful to everybody. Certainly it's on its own a scary set of numbers in many respects, but it's the context of what's going on that's really important. So we'll touch on that as we go through this session.
Great, thank you, Mark. And so please, in this feed, please just write your comments, write your questions in the comments field in the social media and in the Facebook, because then we can see that and we'll answer those at the end. And of course, it's good to get some feedback and some questions from you so that we also understand and can share some of the things you're thinking about. So let's have a quick look at the business confidence survey. So this business confidence survey was started on the I think about the 16th of March. It ran from the 16th of March, about a week prior, the Monday prior to the week before we went into lockdown. So, like the first probably 10 days before lockdown level 4. And we were trying to get a sense at that time about how many businesses were prepared for COVID-19 and how and how concerned they were at that time. And then the survey closed when we were about a week or 10 days into lockdown level 4. So quite an interesting period of time, hopefully one we won't experience again. But we've had a lot of learning since. So it's just some key takeouts for you from that confidence survey. So at that point, 75% of the businesses were already adjusting to the emerging situation around COVID-19. And we did a snapshot of the first 100 responses, and that number changed very quickly in that week before level 4. And the things I were looking at that time were working from home, increased use of technology and online, adjusting staffing and finding out about the wages subsidy. So the government was launching and announcing some of the support packages. So there was a lot of time spent around getting understanding around those packages and certainly cutting costs and those sorts of things. And so across all factors, people could see a negative impact on business performance, but the concern was more around the economic impact rather than the health impact of COVID-19 on their business. Of course, as you would expect, business confidence did go through the floor, and people were actually probably more generated by uncertainty and fear. And the thing that was really interesting in those figures is the respondents, the business community, were very concerned about the economy and confidence in the overall economy for the country, and that was the biggest area of poor confidence. The next area was looking at the Wellington region, and so from a Wellington regional perspective, people were also really negative, had really poor confidence about the Wellington region. However, what is really interesting is that when you ask business owners about, or managers or general managers, those are the sorts of people who complete this survey, if you ask them about their own ability, their own confidence in their own ability to respond, and their own ability to drive their own earnings in this sort of situation, the confidence was much higher than their confidence in the economy overall. And that's quite important, because I think what that shows is that many leaders, business leaders in our community, can look at an economy through separate eyes than actually look at their own business. So they still back themselves and they still see that they have opportunity, and they still see that there are things they can do to adjust. And I think that's the nature of our business community. It comes through in every confidence survey that they still back themselves and are still confident about their own businesses, more so than they're confident about the general economy. So confidence in an economy does not also translate through to confidence in your own business performance. And that is held true through this COVID experience so far. So, we've discussed it many times, haven't we, Mark? How that every confidence survey that shows.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's the nature of business owners and business managers that we tend to be able to look at our environment and take responsibility for what's happening and work our way through. And I think that shows where we see those responses in the increasing pessimism about the future for the region, and then even worse for the country, is that that sphere of control is getting further and further away from the business owner or manager. And so I have less confidence in the local government or local environment to manage this, less than I have, and I have even less confidence the further I get away from me, the less confidence I have in somebody to manage it as well as I would. And I mean that in a good way. So it's not a surprising result, but certainly it was a much sharper and stronger separation than normal. The distance between how confident the respondents are to their own business versus the region or the country is always a gap, but this was a much bigger gap than normal. Again, not surprising given the huge lack of confidence or certainty in what was going to happen, what might happen, what the impact could be. So yeah, really, really staggering difference.
Yeah, I think too, it was very clear that in that period of the survey, which is only like 3 and 2 weeks ago, it's a very short time ago, it's very current information, but the world has changed so quickly. It changes on us every day, doesn't it? Every day we sit down at our computers and try to keep running our businesses, and the world has changed overnight, and it keeps changing during the day, and there's new information coming out, and it's all really pivotal to business success and growth and expectations. So in the survey we also asked about people's intentions to invest in the next 12 months. So this is really interesting as well, because this is when people were getting to grips with COVID and that it would have an impact on business and that it would be negative. And so we asked people what they were expecting to invest, and 32% still said they would be investing the same as last year. So that's a third, and a third also said they'd invest less. But I actually took quite a lot of heart from that 32% that they said they would invest the same as last year. I suspect that may have changed a little bit since the survey closed a few days ago, but it's still quite a positive sentiment at that time. Yeah. Okay. And intentions to hire, I think because wages and salaries and staff are the major cost in many businesses, intentions to hire took a really a big hit, and 64% said no, but 28% said yes, they were still intending to hire. Certainly, I think the wages subsidy has helped in that space. It's given people some cash flow to pause on and to consider on, and to give them a little bit of breathing space. And we'll probably run the survey a little earlier than the next quarter. We'll probably run another one quite quickly to see how that has changed once we're in level 3 and level 2.
I think you're right. One of the things I've noticed is that it would be interesting to know more inside that question in terms of the short-term confidence versus the long-term confidence, because certainly a lot of people I'm talking to are very much intending to hire. That they've got work booked up when we came into COVID. They had so much work to get through. They needed more staff. They were ready to rock and roll, and for lots of people, they are anticipating that in some way, shape, or form they will still get through that work. And so certainly a number of people I'm talking to are discussing, planning, looking for hiring. They're just not doing it now. They're pausing. They're just they're just. I think I'm going to be. I just want to get through this and make sure. So it's that. Be interested to see how that tone changes over the next few weeks. Yeah,
I can share with our audience today that Mark and I discussed it yesterday, because we've got several vacancies in the chamber, and when we went into COVID level 4, it was like, how do you hire? Not whether we should or not, but how do you actually conduct an effective and confident recruitment process in this environment? And I think that takes a little bit of getting your head around. And once we've nutted that out, I think people will then say, okay, this is how my business has changed, and I need this type of resource that I didn't have previously, and this is how I'll actually carry out an interview and do my recruitment process. So because that's changed as well, hasn't it? So yeah.
We're all much more comfortable in front of the video camera now.
Yeah, we've all learnt a lot, really, haven't we? So 52% actually said that COVID had no impact on their intentions on whether they would hire or not. So that was half. So that was a strong result as well, really, I thought. So there's not a lot of point of comparing this survey to previous ones. To be honest, I didn't bother. It's irrelevant. We haven't got anything comparable. We've had lessons in the past, but nothing is comparable to COVID-19 and the impact it's having on our business community. Certainly there are sectors that are much more systemically damaged by this whole situation, and there are other sectors that aren't, and then there are others that have got huge opportunities. So it takes a lot of getting your head around and determining how it impacts each individual business. So I think it's also important to recognise that this whole situation was completely unexpected and unplanned. It was only a few weeks ago when I sat in a meeting with a person from MB, and he said to me, "Oh, by the way, I'm Mr. COVID." And we both laughed, and we were talking about our expo, and none of us had any understanding of what being Mr. COVID might mean if you worked for MB. And now there's probably hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Mr. COVIDs in MB. Certainly there seems to be by the number of people I speak to every day. So, so we need to acknowledge that it was completely unplanned, no risk management or disaster recovery or resilience type training that we had conducted or offered our members. Looked at pandemic, we'd looked at flood, we'd looked at earthquake, we'd looked at natural disasters, but not pandemic from a viral perspective. So so it's certainly unexpected, but it's good to have been able to take the temperature at the time and then that provide a good benchmark for going forward. Just wanted to share a little bit with you of what we've done since the whole situation has emerged. So what we did right in the early on, well before level 3 or level 4 was even a word or a concept, the Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce joined with the Hutt City Council and the Upper Hutt City Council, and we've set up the Hutt Valley COVID-19 Business Response Group, and that is a locally based business response group determined to ensure that every business that we can help in through this situation gets as much support, advice and financial support, learning support, training, or even someone just to talk to. So they get as much as what is available, and that is very much a local team. I have to acknowledge the Hutt City Council and Upper Hutt City Council for, they won't tell you, but they've allocated many staff members to this response team. They've given us staff to be phoning business people. We meet every morning at 9 o'clock. Both city councils have been very responsive to ensure they've helped the business community as much as possible. They understand very clearly how important it is to the overall community, and they want to do whatever they can to make sure that we provide as much support. Can't make this whole situation go away, can't deny it, can't do anything else, but we can help as many businesses, and they've given us a lot of resource to help us with that. And so I want to acknowledge them for that and share that with everybody so people understand that.
Really good point, Helen. I think in a large respect, a lot of that work in the background is invisible. So most people, most business owners, most homeowners, most ratepayers won't see that. They won't see what's going on. But there's a lot happening in both councils. It's certainly very heartening to see.
And we're informing that and supporting that and working with that every day. Absolutely every day, even on weekends we're doing that. So, weekends seem to become a blur. My husband said to me this morning, what day of the week is it? Is it Monday or is it Friday? Who knows? Does it really matter? So, a lot of change. I just also wanted to just a little bit of help on the chamber. We're all working remotely. We set that up probably 10 days prior to this whole situation really becoming very real. And we've learned a lot too and changed a lot as well. And we want to make sure that it's all about local businesses, supporting local businesses. So when it comes to providing expertise locally to our business community, we're making sure we use local businesses to do that. Because those are the people who are truly motivated to make sure that the Hutt Valley business community comes through this process as well as possible and comes out the other side taking as many opportunities and with as much vibrancy and energy and innovation that we can, really.
Yeah.
So also thought it would be good, Mark, didn't we, to share some of the stories that we're hearing. So we've got an outbound calling program running every day where we're phoning as many business owners. We've got hundreds and hundreds to phone, probably we've got more than 1,000, but we're just phoning as many as we can every day, and we have an inbound number that people are calling us on, and we're reaching out every hour of every day to businesses and working with them. And we're hearing lots of very fabulous stories, very exciting stories. And it's actually in amongst all the negative media and all the confusion and concern and uncertainty and the horrible statistics that you see overseas, and even the really sad personal ones locally, even though they're not large, they're really personal. We have to start thinking about recovery. And so we're very fortunate to hear some excellent stories that we thought we'd share with you this morning.
Yeah,
do you want to start with one, Mark?
Yeah, I guess just before that, and as part of that, I think it's important to look at the different types of groups that are being affected. So in one way, you can look at it by industry, and that becomes obvious. So yeah, if you're in tourism or in hospitality, it's if you're not in those industries, it's easy to look at those industries and think, wow, they must really be hurting. But outside of that, it gets a little bit harder to kind of figure out how would that business be going and how would that business be going. And certainly what we're seeing is that the impact and the response is really split. And I think at one end there's those businesses that are really hurt. That this is really, really significant end of impact. There are other businesses that are growing. there's another segment that actually they're busier than they ever were. One of my clients is growing, actively trying to recruit at the moment because of the industry they're in. They're in more demand than ever. Then there's the businesses that can continue to trade a bit and they're doing okay. And there's those businesses in the middle. And I think their response is I watched a commentary from Tony Alexander not long ago. Tony Alexander is the economist, used to be BNZ. And he described that the government initiatives were around trying to hibernate the economy. It was just trying to close it down for 4 weeks so it could come back and wake up again. That was how he described the benefit. And I think when that word actually describes quite a lot of business people, that they're just kind of hunkering down and just sort of hibernating for a while, hoping to come out of the back end, working, preparing, getting on with it. And there's a lot of people. I spoke to two businesses yesterday, two chamber members yesterday, and that was their response, both of them. It was very much, we're getting on, we're getting ready, we're doing what we can, but it's just kind of just keep things going. Through the back end. And so if you're in that space, that's okay. I think that's probably one of the points, is that of course you're preparing, but just understand that it's okay to just be hibernating for a while if that's where you are. Be grateful and work hard to come out the back end. But that's just why I just wanted to share that really, because it's one of those things which isn't shared much. We tend to see the big news stories of the businesses doing great things and really impressive changes. We tend to hear the really terrible stories. We don't get that middle, that silent centre that I just wanted to make sure people could see was out there. So one of the stories that I shared yesterday of a business here in the Hutt, and it was the main story here was around the importance of that business continuity bit that Helen was talking about. That we plan for earthquakes and we plan for floods and we plan for other things. And what was interesting was this business had transitioned really, really easily, comparatively easily, into this environment because they'd been really heavily affected by Kaikoura. And so because of Kaikoura, they had implemented a whole lot of changes to their IT environment, their ability to work from home, their ability to work remotely, and it really ramped up that readiness and kept it high. And it kind of reminded me of how many of us got our water bottles ready after the big earthquakes and got our survival kits ready, and how many of us check them, and how many of us actually change the water and keep it fresh, and how and I suspect if we look at a lot of us, we'd say the water's probably a bit expired. It's probably I haven't really made sure that the medical kit is still current. And this business they've kept it really active, they've kept it really alive, not knowing what was coming, but it really served them well. So probably as a reminder to all of us that post this, it's important to keep whatever our response plans are, ready for whatever could come. Certainly for that business, it was incredibly beneficial to them. That was one thing. What do you got, Helen?
I just wanted to share a story that, I think around this hibernation thing. So I think businesses certainly have been hibernating and doing some really good things. I certainly have already had an email this morning from one local business who I spoke to just before lockdown, and their email is about their website. And, so many businesses, I know two in Upper Hutt, two retail businesses that have never had online shops before, and people have spoken to them for years about having online shops, and they've stood online shops up right now. So, there's certainly some that have hibernated. There's also an amazing group of manufacturers, and they may have taken a day or two off, it seems, and then they've just put on that entrepreneurial thinking hat that they can't resist and have just completely changed their operation. They've seen an opportunity and they've gone after it. And even if they can't complete manufacture because they're not an essential service or they're not providing an essential service, they've certainly done as much as they can, and now they are champing at the bit to get out and start getting stuff out the door. We certainly have exporters who are sitting on orders. So I've had many of those come through who want to get those distributed out to their international markets. So we're feeding a lot of that back into MB to try and get some of those roadblocks unlocked. We've had a few successes. I've got one on my to-do list today that I'd really like to get a success for, and that's Hills Hats. And I'd just like to mention Hills Hats. Hills Hats was inducted into our Wellington Region Business Hall of Fame last year. They were started 145 years ago in Lambton Quay and are now based in Petone. So they've been through 2 world wars as a business, and they've supplied through 145 years of our history. And I was speaking to Simon Smuts-Kennedy yesterday, the business. He runs it now. His father's 81, and his father is still involved too, and having a few issues with his Facebook Live and things like that. But, fabulous, innovative company, and they've made the most amazing face masks. Now, they make hats. They supply hats to New Zealand Army, to police, to fire, to all sorts of people, and they've made face masks. And they're not an essential service. Well, it's hard to know if they are or not, and we're trying very hard to say, okay, we need to get these face masks out because they need to go to Red Cross. And so things like that, people are already changing and saying, hey, I've got a talent here, I've got a resource. Their cutting tables are huge, and they're being used by the Ministry of Education this week to distribute hard packs out to schools with fabric in them for sewing, I assume, and textile design type projects for distance learning. So, we've got a lot of businesses here that have done as much as they possibly can. They're seriously cautious about breaking any rules, really cautious, and they don't want to contravene anything. They're not trying to break rules at all. In fact, they're trying very hard to make sure they haven't, but they're doing amazing things. So, and we're going to profile some of those really good success stories that are out there. So a lot of businesses still operating under the essential banner, and they're clearly essential. And there's some that the whole essential banner title just doesn't work at all. And I'm hoping, based on conversations we're having with MB and others, that whole essential title or term will be replaced very shortly with the word safe. And as long as you can demonstrate safety in your operation, then you don't have to be essential. So I'm hoping they will just remove that very shortly in the next few days. We should see an announcement on that today. So Hills Hats is a fabulous example of a business that they did a whole lot of work prior to lockdown in preparation for what might be coming, and they've had to go into lockdown in a non-essential basis because they weren't sure, and we'll just keep trying really hard to get those face masks distributed. So I think that's a fabulous story.
And you probably heard the Wild Kiwi story, Helen, which is Wild Kiwi's a distillery in Upper Hutt, distillery bar restaurant up in Brotown in Upper Hutt, and of course they've got all the equipment ready to start brewing whiskey, and fantastically they pivoted and started making hand sanitizer. Because that equipment can do that, and so they made a huge one, a batch of hand sanitizer, and they've already got it out. So I hope they're making more, because liquid gold would be a better name for hand sanitizer. It's the unobtainium. So yeah, just again an immediate pivot. It was a need. They had the ability. They got it out, and just awesome.
We've also got other manufacturers, some who don't want to be profiled, don't want to be named, feel quite concerned that they are almost guilty that they're still operating, but they're supplying to the health service. They're supplying face masks, or they're supplying face visors, or they're supplying food packaging, or so there's all sorts of those businesses that are trying very hard to keep quiet and not tell people. So I'm not going to name them, obviously, because they don't want, they have a sense of, you guys are being really good. Thank you for staying home and working from home. But our life hasn't changed that much. We've just got more demand. And so they feel quite guilty about that, which I think is an interesting reaction. But to be honest, we need to be very grateful we have them in our community. They're supplying locally. One is supplying straight into the DHB, never have supplied to the DHB before. Major manufacturer supplying products straight into the Hutt Valley DHB. And I think that supplying local piece is hugely important going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I suppose then there are the tourism and hospitality and retail spaces that are certainly more systemically threatened by this situation. So, and many of those are adjusting. There's quite a few anomalies in there. There's some that have somehow managed to get a permit to operate, and some that haven't. But they're all reconsidering their operations model and how they deliver service to their customers. I don't mean just picking up the piece of food and moving it, but how they actually operate, and we have to be very mindful that consumer behaviour has changed substantially. What was acceptable 3 weeks ago, which we didn't even think about, or even a month ago, we now think really carefully about meeting someone face to face, or shaking their hand, or we wouldn't dream of doing it. I remember thinking, wow, fancy not shaking someone's hand. But now I think it's going to be very natural to not do that,
Hard habit to break, isn't it?
Yeah, hard habit to break.
So, of hospitality and retail, Helen, can you touch a little bit on the delivery services that are becoming that are growing, that are coming out, and where they are, where they can be found in the Hutt Valley NZ side?
Yes, so on the Hutt Valley, so as part of the Hutt Valley COVID-19 business response team, we've stood up 2 new websites. The one that you want to know about for accessing people who are operating, and we'll be changing this as we move from essential to safe businesses that can operate. But on the Hutt Valley NZ site, you will find a fabulous Google-powered map of where all your local suppliers are that are operating. There's a directory on there as well with links through to all their websites. There's hundreds of businesses on there. A lot of the delivery of food and other essential items companies are on there. It's being updated every day as more change their category or deliver new, develop new services and bring those to market. It's a very big job to keep that current. It's trawling a lot of Facebook and that sort of thing, but it's been very useful. And so I would encourage you to take a look at Hutt Valley NZ website and look at the business support piece on there. I'd also encourage you to take a look at our Facebook group that we've stood up, which is Facebook Hutt Valley COVID-19 Business Support Group. We're doing these. There's a whole lot of past live streams and things that are on that, and you may be watching this one on another shared Facebook page. But go to that particular group, because we're all feeding all our information. That is our main place for what's happening during the day and the night. And then if the Hutt Valley Chamber has stood up a whole new website as well, hvchamber.org.nz. I hope I've got that right. And it's all around COVID-19. So there's many pages there. Raywin has done a fabulous job of standing that website up in a very short period of time. And there's so much advice we're collating, whatever we find by the hour, onto that website for business. So It's not about businesses. It's not about just essential, but it's about, wages subsidies and the new announcements that are going to come out this week, and definitions on what safe businesses are that'll come out this week as well. We'll be putting all that on there as well. Plus, we're sending out newsletters to the business community twice a week. We'll probably, being a short week this week, we'll probably only do one, and collating up all the latest information. It's a really one other source that you'll find very interesting is NZTE have stood up a manufacturers marketplace. So if you Google NZTE manufacturers, or you go onto our shared COVID-19 Hutt Valley Facebook group, you'll find the link there. And there are all the lot of manufacturers countrywide offering their products that they're making, that many of them are health oriented, obviously, and COVID-19 and essential, and others requesting. So it's a really good marketplace for manufacturers to find suppliers and to change their supply lines, or to more local if they need to, or to get some word out about some of the products that they are certainly now recreating. Another fabulous story of metal art in Port Road and Seaview. I don't know if you saw that one, Mark, but Carl's team there at Metal Art, created a huge number of hand sanitizer stations for Countdown, and the photos are also on that Facebook group. So, just fabulous to see them. They've probably never done a hand sanitizer stand in their life, never even thought they needed to, but certainly they had piles of them ready to be shipped, and fabulous to see business like that pivoting so quickly.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So just if you've got any questions of any other particular areas of the economy locally, or what's happening next, then please don't hesitate to ask them. I think I should just share a little bit about where we go, what I think was going to happen in the next week. So there was a really good webinar yesterday that I was unable to attend because we had our own on as well. But Grant Robertson certainly gave a sense of, on that webinar, of what is coming next. And the focus is moving away from being an essential business and being more a safe business. So what we will do over the next week is try and provide you with some resources around what a safe business operation looks like, so we can help you comply with those requirements, and they'll be fleshed out. That will start today. There's an announcement, I'm not sure if it's at 1 or 3 this afternoon, of what level 3 looks like, and if we go to it next week, or when we do go to it, it is likely to be around those definitions of ensuring that we can operate our businesses in a safe way. So for some that will mean we're still working from home, but for many that will mean that we just are changing the way we operate on a daily basis. Things like split shifts, things like the distancing between tables and workstations. And many manufacturers I know are already working on that. I'm getting queries about it. I know of one manufacturing company that will be creating a blog around how they are creating a safe environment, and I'm hoping to be able to share that with you. So I think that's where the focus moves to from today, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting ready for that.
Yeah.
So a couple of things in there. That social distancing is one thing. Another thing I suspect will come out is a requirement for increased ability to contact trace. So if people coming into your workspace, the ability to reach to those people and know who they are, so that if need be, they can be followed up with.
And there's some very simple ways of doing that. There'll be some tech-based ways of doing that as well, which we'll look into for you. But there'll be some very simple ways, like just simple registrations. And I know of a local company actually that has a tech product that could be perfect for that. So yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well.
So one of the other thing that people might not be aware of yet is some of the recent changes that the government's put out in terms of the support. So there's been some business consultancy support for a while now. This week they put out some information where they've increased the funding for that. So it's a little bit awkward for me raising it because I provide this service, but I guess I want to make sure everyone's aware that it's out there, not just because it might be red hot you want to use, but there are other options out there. So if you're out there and you feel like you could use some support from someone like myself at Red Hot, accounting, finance, HR, there's a bunch of things that are available out there where the government will fully fund access and consulting support from professionals. So for Red Hot, for example, we're offering a a fixed, fully funded package to business owners where we're going to do cash flow planning, we're doing business planning, response planning, we're looking at staffing, HR, how to get back into the marketplace, really a full-on response planning process that'll last a number of sessions. The government pays for it in full. So not everyone's going to qualify for that, and the government obviously is controlling that, but it's out there and it's available. And so if you are there, particularly if you're on your own, particularly if you don't have an external support structure, somebody that's not in your business that can help you look in from the outside, I really encourage you to look into it. Contact the Chamber, get directly in touch with Red Hot. And again, it's not about our service. If we can help you, we'd love to. But actually, it's just about getting the support you need to make sure you get through this and you thrive on the far side. So really encourage you to look out for that and find out if it's something that you could use to help you.
Great. Can I add one little thing to that, Mark, is that, when we've been making our outbound calls, it's very clear to us all that many of the business people who are normally very, very busy and, very hard to get on the phone, actually now they do want to talk. Many business owners are very alone and it doesn't get talked about in the media. I've certainly been there myself in the past when you are running your business and you're under so much pressure and there is no one around you, not at home or at work, that actually understands your unique position. And I think that is clearly the situation now, and just having someone to talk to, I think, should not be underestimated. Just be able to bounce some ideas off them, check some of your thinking, and just temper some of the fears you may have, but also help you and discover some of those opportunities that may be sitting there as well, and ask you some of the crazy questions that maybe 4 weeks ago no one would even have considered. So that is a really important part of what this funding supplies. No one tells you that. No, there's nothing about that written down anywhere. It's all a bit too soft, but actually it's what gets many businesses through really hard times and really challenging times. So don't underestimate the value of just having someone external to work alongside you to help you with your own thinking. And I think that's an important part of looking at this funding. There is actually more to be announced in this funding space. We're trying very hard to get that increased, because it's actually a very small amount in terms of how many businesses it's actually reaching. So we're talking directly with MB and with government intensively right now to make sure Hutt Valley businesses can absolutely access as much of that funding as is fair for them to be able to access. So so it's really important. Okay, so I don't think we've got any other questions, have we, Mark?
Can't see any new ones that have come through, so
right. Okay, so what we'll keep an eye on this feed today, and if you've got any other questions around what's happening in the business community, then please feel free to pop that into the Facebook comment stream. Of course, you can phone the Chamber. You'd think I'd know our number, but I don't actually, because I never ring it. But of course, you can email me, ceo@hvcci.org.nz, or you can phone our main line. We've had all our phones, thanks to Layer 3, put on an app, so we can answer all our phones like normal from the office. We had that done the Friday before we moved out of the office. So we can answer phones, just use normal numbers. Please join us online. Please visit our websites. Please go to our Facebook group if you're not already part of that. Get involved there. Coming up, we've got several events planned. Tomorrow we're very fortunate to have our platinum partner BNZ speaker. Phil Patterson will share information on the finance guarantee scheme that the government announced, and that'll be tomorrow on our 8 o'clock Facebook live stream. I think we're up to about 10 or 12 of these that we've done in the last couple of weeks, and we're also working on several for next week around tech and manufacturing, and for providing information around what it takes to be a safe business and the process for being able to get back to work as soon as possible. So just thank you very much for all the communication and all the engagement. Thank you for your ongoing support. As a chamber, of course, we're a membership-based organisation, and we certainly don't want to lose our supporters. We can't do anything without our supporters and our members and our partners. And thank you for your ongoing support. It's been really heartening. We're providing service to people who aren't members because that's just our role as well as part of the voice for the local business community. But we need our members and our partners to enable us to continue to operate. So, really, really appreciate the real support we're getting to deliver services and be the voice for the Hutt Valley business community. Mate, do you want to say anything in closing?
No, I just want to acknowledge you, Helen, and the team. So Hannah and Raymond in the background particularly, they are working like champions and like Trojans. So they won't tell you, but as president of this chamber, I'm incredibly proud of what the team are doing. They're working their asses off. So publicly, as one of many times I'll do this, thank you for all your work and your effort, and I'm sure the rest of our business community is grateful that you are all there looking out for all of us. So thank you.
Cheers. Thanks. And have a great day, guys.